thegearnetwork.com.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
Hey, this is H.C. Loke. You're checking out the All Bets Are Off podcast with Robbie Vegas.
What's up, rock soldiers? This is the Rockstar Robbie Vegas with another episode of the All Bets Are Off podcast, and this episode is piggybacking off of last week. We had Saren Rain, who was a trainee of H.C. Loke, ECW and Ring of Honor original, and today we have TJ Epixx, who is also a trainee of H.C. Loke. So we're going to be talking to TJ and getting into what his career has held up to this point. He's been in it just a little bit longer than Saren Rain, so we're going to sit down with him a little bit, see what he's got going on, and offering him a big congratulations on winning his first major title at Excite Wrestling. So let's not waste any more time, and let's get TJ on the phone. Today's episode is brought to you by Anguihsed Allure magazine. Anguihsed Allure was founded in Buffalo and celebrates Halloween all year long. Anguihsed Allure magazine features gothic and horror-themed businesses, artists, and photographers. If you'd like to buy a copy and support them, or submit your own artwork or products, please reach out to them at anguishedalluremagazine.com. So one more time, that's anguishedalluremagazine.com. So please check them out. Support our sponsor, and they're more than a sponsor. We absolutely adore this magazine, and we know that you will too.
Hey everybody, this is Lauren Marie Taylor, creator and host of the Not the Final Girl podcast. Okay, so every horror fan remembers the final girl, right? You know, the one who can outrun and outsmart the Jasons, the Michaels, the Chuckies. I think you get it. But what about the girls and, the guys who met with an untimely end? Those of us who were tortured and tripped, dragged and killed. Don't we deserve some props? As Vicky in Friday the 13th Part 2 and Sheila in Girls Night Out, I know what a drag it is to succumb to those masked and wardrobe-challenged killers, to not be the final girl. On my new podcast, I'll be chatting with other women of horror who share the same fate. Special guests include those final girls as well as the writers and directors who created our characters, only to give us an early expiration date. And if they play nice, we'll let some of those crazed killers of horror tell their side of the story. So join me, Lauren Marie Taylor, on the Not the Final Girl podcast. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you get the alerts when the episodes drop. Thanks for listening. Keep your doors locked and stay out of the woods.
TJ, man, thanks for being here on the All Bets Are Off podcast for your first time.
Yeah, I'm excited to do it.
Well, I've been meaning to talk to you for a little while now, and how long have you been in the business officially now?
Officially, I have been in the business for 2 years and about 4 months now.
How old were you when you actually started training?
I was 23.
Okay. So I know I met you really early on in your career, and I never really got a chance to ask you about how you got started. So how did you actually find H.C. Loke and start training to become a professional wrestler?
It was actually pretty weird. I kind of stumbled into it by accident, I guess. Mm-hmm. I always wanted to wrestle, like, ever since I was a kid, and I just never knew how to get into it. And I was actually volunteering at the VFW one day, and after I got done, sat down at the bar, and I was watching a wrestling video on my phone, and there was a guy there that said, hey, there's a guy in this area that does that, right? And I was thinking, like, it was probably, like, some backyard guys, because I knew there was some people around here that did that. And then he was like, no, that he did, like, ECW, Ring of Honor, and he gave me his name, and it was Loke. And I reached out to him, and a couple days later, he let me know that he had his own school coming up, and he invited me to come down. So from there, just kind of threw my entire self into it.
Now, did you find yourself, when you started training, like a natural? Because you seem to be progressing so fast in the business, so I would assume that when you got started, you probably had that natural ability a little bit at least, right?
Yeah, some of the athleticism came naturally. I actually had to unlearn some things because I came from an amateur wrestling background. So I actually had to learn how to not have a death grip when I was wrestling in the ring and stuff and hurt people by accident. Yeah, it was, but I come from an athletic background my whole life. Since I was 4 years old, I played football, lacrosse, and I wrestled, and I did that all the way through college.
So what are your earliest memories of professional wrestling? When did you discover it, get into it? Who did you like?
So I kind of knew about it because my dad, when I was young, 4 or 5 years old, because my dad always liked Stone Cold Steve Austin. That was the guy at the time, obviously. And I ended up falling in love with it myself a few years later, and it was kind of weird. My grandma brought me to the store one day, and she let me pick out one toy. And the toy I picked was actually a Kurt Angle action figure. I just thought he was a cool-looking action figure to have. And then that night, I was flipping through the channels, and Kurt Angle was on TV.
Oh, wow.
And it was that weird association right there when I was a kid. I was like, oh, this is awesome. And I saw everything he did. I think I saw him do a moonsault that night. And it just made me go, oh, wow, this is awesome. I want more of this. And I ended up buying, the WrestleMania 21 DVD, and I rewatched it until the disc broke because it burned out my DVD player. And from there, just kind of became an obsession to the point where I had to have every action figure, any DVD that came out, I had to have it. And my parents were actually really supportive with that and kind of fed the addiction for a while when I was a kid.
So how did they handle it when you told them that you were going to start training to become a professional wrestler? Were they still really supportive, or were they kind of are you serious?
Yeah, they were supportive. They're obviously going to be happy as long as I'm happy, and I always appreciated that from them. However, they were also saying, okay, well, don't get hurt doing this, because when I was a kid, I did backyard wrestling, and I probably would have done it all throughout high school until my parents were like, okay, you got to have a serious life goal now. You're not going to be a professional wrestler, okay? And so I kind of stepped away from wrestling, and then as soon as I fell back into it, I knew, no, this is what I love to do. I wish I never even, fell away from wrestling at all at any point. And they, I think my mom was just oh, dang it, it's back, but he's happy. So they were super supportive the whole time, and I was actually really appreciative of that, to the point where, they came to my very first match that I was actually booked for, and not... because obviously my first match was with you, ironically.
Yes, right.
Yeah, I think I was probably 3 weeks in at that time.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember Loke saying he's pretty fresh, but you can work with him, and we did. And I remember poking fun at you, saying wow, look at you, your very first match, and 3 weeks in, and you're facing the heavyweight champion.
Yeah, I remember hearing someone didn't show up or something, and Logan's just hey, just listen to Robbie, I trust you guys, you know how to bump, and you guys will, me, my friend Adon at the time, who was training with me, and Kibu Harris, and you just took care of us, and you let me live out my dream very early into me trying it, and I'm always super appreciative of that.
But you know what? There was something about you that when he was telling me that, I could work with you and you're a good listener and you know how to bump and all that stuff. And I remember rolling around in the ring for just a few minutes before, doors opened or whatever with you, and thinking well, this kid's got something. There was some kind of charisma or an it factor. And I was really looking forward to seeing how you reacted to coming out in front of a crowd and actually having a match. And I was super impressed because you were only 3 weeks in, and I'm still impressed by you now. And I watch your stuff even when I don't tell you I'm watching it, and I'm holy shit, you've grown so much, it's insane.
Wow, thank you. That actually means a lot. Definitely feel like I've grown a little bit since my first crowd interaction, because I remember I was terrified. One of those, I think it was 20-something people, 30 people in the crowd, and I you could have told me there's 50,000 people, I would have reacted the same. I think I was terrified going out there.
Well, it didn't show the way that you probably thought it did. So, it's one of those things where with professional wrestling where you get the butterflies and you feel scared and then you walk out there and everything just makes sense. I guess my next question for you is, do you remember like a match or like a moment in professional wrestling where you were like, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to become a professional wrestler because of this?
I think one match that I saw when I was a kid that made me just want to do it immediately was, I think it was WrestleMania 22. And it was Kurt Angle versus Randy Orton versus Rey Mysterio. Mm-hmm. And I remember seeing Rey Mysterio and seeing that he was a little guy and he won the championship. And that, I guess, as a kid, that was like, oh, wow, even the little guy can win this and do this. And I think that's kind of where it clicked for me. And I ended up getting a trampoline that year because I kept asking for it because I wanted to wrestle.
That's awesome. So if I told you right now that you had to pick a top 4 Mount Rushmore of professional wrestlers, who comes to mind?
Comes to mind right away, Shawn Michaels. He's always my number one. Just any version of Shawn Michaels is always great. Bret Hart, just technical master. Always watch his stuff just to see the little cues that he does and the little things in between that makes him stand out. And he's the greatest of all time for the best reasons. Mm-hmm. Then Ric Flair and, man, 4 always changes with me because I'm always like, oh, man, this guy is it because of this and stuff like that. But, man, I'm really trying to think of number 4 for me right now. But probably just CM Punk or someone like that, mm-hmm. just because they always kept me invested, like, when I first came back into wrestling, and like I remember seeing CM Punk when I was younger, and then where he is now, and he's always just the most real person, and that's something I always gravitate towards.
Now, I love your Mount Rushmore. They're all amazing workers, amazing wrestlers, and I guess my question then, because all the names that you picked are also great promos, do you find yourself in that same boat because those are people that you look up to where you could cut a pretty good promo too?
Promo-wise, I'm actually still working on. I'm going to be completely honest with myself. And even if I can cut a decent promo, I always see the flaws in it, and I see the flaws in myself. And at the same time, those are the guys I always watch to try to get better and try to understand, like, okay, I could do that better by enunciating myself more like so-and-so or something like that. Mm-hmm.
Now, how many states have you actually wrestled in this, new into the business? You're still, going to be considered green for X amount of more years. So, but you've already been like pretty road worn. Like you're out there and you're grinding all the time.
Yeah, I'm always trying to stay busy. I mean, having a weekend off is a very rare and weird thing for me. But luckily, like HC Loke, my head trainer, he's my wrestle dad. I'm super appreciative. He takes me everywhere. And he's given me a lot of opportunities, and it's helped me branch out to have connections with other people. But state-wise, let me take a second to just real think quick about it. New York, Pennsylvania. I think I've wrestled in 6 or 7 states now.
Wow. And you're, 2 years in, you said?
Yeah, a little over 2 years now.
Oh my God. That's amazing, man. Good for you. And you just hit another milestone recently because you just won your first major singles title at Excite Wrestling. That had to be an amazing feeling for you after all of this, from the backyard to, the indie scene.
Yeah, definitely. It's actually still pretty surreal. Like, it doesn't feel real still because it's kind of been a goal since I first got into actually wrestling, and I just kind of feel so honored that they trust me enough to carry the belt right now. I feel a lot of pressure to keep the value up in it because former Excite International Champion was LSG, and obviously he is an amazing worker, and I looked up to him for a while, and it's just kind of weird, but at the same time, I'm super happy that I got this opportunity and chance, and yeah, and I'm just super happy that the Excite crew, Johnny Moose, he's always supported me, it seems like, and he's given me these opportunities to try to grow as a performer, and I wouldn't be here without having those opportunities and that trust by them, and I really appreciate that.
And Excite is a fantastic place to work too. So it's not like it's just any title. Like that's a pretty big deal. And congratulations. And I wanted to wait until I talked to you on the show to say congratulations to you personally, because I was very proud of you when I saw that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's definitely a trip right now.
Well, tell me, who are some of your favorite opponents on the indie scene so far? I know that we said it's only a little over 2 years, but with as much as you travel, you've got a lot of guys under your belt.
Yeah, so I've always had just fun matches like wherever I go, but some of the people that I like going against is one, my wrestle dad, HC Loke. I've only got to go against him a couple of times right now, but it's always just, it's not stressful. It's more of, hey, we're going to have fun and we get to do some cool stuff without having to worry about anything. Mm-hmm. Another one is my wrestle brother, Siren Rain. I think, again, gone against each other a couple of times, but, I mean, he kills it every time he's in the ring, and me and him, we trust each other, and we like to do the most that we can do to try to put on bangers. And then I've got to go against a couple of guys that, just as soon as we touch, like it feels right. Like it feels like we can do great things in the ring. Some of those guys were like, let me think. Sorry, I'm trying to filter through, but like I remember, like when I went down to NFW, I went against Austin Luke, and super talented guy. I'd love to run it back with him sometime, just because I feel like I underperformed compared to my usual ability, and I would love to just run it back and just go full out with him. I have my tag partner, Chael Connors, who I've wanted to go against in a one-on-one as well, just because me and him are so similar and so, like, we know each other like the back of our hands. Like, I would love to just do a one-on-one with him, but at the same time, me and him, when we tag, we've gone against some fun tag teams as well, and put on some magic with that too.
So who are some of the, those tag teams that you two have faced that you've really enjoyed?
Some that I've really enjoyed were, it's always fun when we got to go against, like, Defiance. We got to go against this actual new tag team. They started out during COVID era and everything, but Greed, and they train up at Flower City, where we train sometimes. And it's a group of 4 guys, but any 2 of them that are combined together, they just click as a team. And when we get to go against them, it feels just natural, and we can just keep it going,
Now, since you brought up Flower City, you do train there sometimes, even though HC Loke is your main trainer, your head trainer. Now, is there a very different style, a very different way that they go about training as compared to Loke, or is it pretty similar?
It's pretty similar, which is, I think, why Loke also really likes it up there. Everyone has the mentality of put your best foot forward, keeping it, making wrestling real, and the little in-between things that they help me coach up on. And, I've trained up there with Chris Caden, I've trained up there with Matic, Hellcat, even the few times that he's been able to be there for trainings and just give us 2 cents on things. Like, I always take any kind of notes or advice that they give and just try to run with it as far as I can, because Loke actually told us from day one he wanted us to go anywhere and everywhere to train. Like, yeah, he's my number 1 trainer and I'm learning everything from him, but he admits that, like, everyone has their own different flavors of ice cream. So there's something that he might like that he does, but then there's, like, Sean Carr up at Excite would teach me things that in his way, and neither way is the wrong way or the right way. It's just different. He wants me to learn anything that's new, different, that might work for me better than some other thing might.
Right. Now, when you started getting booked regularly, was Upstate Pro Wrestling the first place that was booking you, or was there somewhere before that?
No, Upstate Pro Wrestling is one of the first places consistently. Them, a couple months after I first went to UPW was Excite. With Excite pretty early as well, and I've just been kind of grinding away there for the last 2 years.
Yeah, those are 2 great places to get started with regular bookings, too. The rosters at both are just insanely talented. It blows my mind sometimes. Exactly.
And, like, honestly, looking back at it, I feel so lucky and humbled that I had the opportunity to go to just start out with 2 great places like that, because they just kind of get it, and I was able to get my foot in pretty early. at those places pretty early in my own career, I guess.
Yeah, right. And I see a common theme here with you and Loke's other students and the Flower City students. You guys are all so talented, but yet still so humble and ready to grind and work hard. And I said this last week when I had Siren Rain on the show. It's so refreshing to see up-and-comers that are like, I really want this, and I'm going to grind for it and keep my head down and plow through, but I'm also grateful for everything, even though you guys are a step above and a cut above a lot of the younger guys that I've seen come in recent years that have like a constant chip on their shoulders or something.
Yeah, I mean, Loke, at the same time, he would never even let us not be humble. Like, it's always beating our head to, like, hey, we're always lucky to do this. Like, even the worst day in wrestling is still the greatest day in anyone else's life, in my opinion, just because I get to live out a dream I've had since I was 4 years old.
And you're crushing that dream, and you now hold a singles title in Excite, which is a great company. And what's next for you? Like, what goals are you setting from here?
Some goals that I have now are, I kind of want to branch out a little further. Want to try to go against some talents outside of the state. A couple places I'm trying to get in are that New Jersey scene. I see a super talented crop of guys out there that, like, in JCW, Catalyst, GCW, obviously. And I just want to be able to kind of get out there and branch out there a little more. And luckily, one of the opportunities I have to try to get my foot in the door is NFW, which I'm actually got a match coming up there this month.
Oh, great. Well, since we're talking about upcoming shows, why don't you plug a bunch of your next few shows so that people in the areas can come out and check you out?
Yeah, thanks. November, sorry, I got to double check my date so I don't say the wrong thing. November 19th, I'm actually going to be at NFW in a 6-man Mayhem match. Mm-hmm. Just a bunch of talent from all over the area that I'm super excited to get in the ring with. And that's just something I'm looking forward to. Me and my tag partner are actually going to Ohio next week as well to go and wrestle at NCW. And it's I think our first time actually going out of state as a tag team.
Oh,
so
cool.
I'm excited for that one as well. And I have a couple things here or there, and I know, like, I have Excite is December 4th. December 3rd, I was going up to Nickel City. November 27th, I'm going to help out at ESW and stuff like that. So even if I'm not booked, I'm always going everywhere to these places just to even help out.
That's excellent, man. Making your rounds and still paying those dues. That's huge.
Yeah, I always try to. It's, again, a weekend off just doesn't sit right with me. I'm always trying to do something.
Well, what do you do as far as when you're training and you're in the gym and you're not in the ring? What kind of music are you listening to that's pumping you up? What's your favorite stuff right now?
Right now, I mean, I can never go wrong with some Motley Crue and stuff like that. Like, I always change my flavor of music, but that's usually one of the most consistent things. Motley Crue, and then I'll get in, like, my moods for, like, Metallica and stuff like that, just try to really step it up. And sometimes kind of fall into, like, I Prevail and stuff like that.
Now, you didn't lead with Motley Crue because it's your host's entrance music, right?
No, I didn't, but right when I just started thinking about it, I was like, oh, well, that kind of works out too, right?
All right, so how about outside of wrestling? We know, like, Siren Rain and The Process and a lot of these guys that have been on the show all have a huge love for horror movies when they're not, doing stuff involved in the wrestling business. Is that also you, or is that not your thing?
I like horror movies. I actually will go into spurts where, like, I'm super, super into, like, the lore of, like, some kind of franchise. Mm-hmm. I remember when I was younger, it was Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, I couldn't get enough of it. Even the bad movies were amazing to me, just because it was just kind of cool seeing how they try to make the story connect in every way.
Yeah.
Actually, for the first time, just watched the entire Halloween series.
Oh, nice. Very cool. That's one of my favorite ones, too. So we just did a whole episode on the whole franchise for that. So I didn't realize that you were as into it. I was expecting you to be like, yeah, kind of. So now I'm curious. What else you got?
What else I got? I mean, the Texas Chainsaw movies, but I can't just because. Sorry, I keep getting a phone call right now. I'm trying to.
Popular guy.
Yeah. Oh, the old lady's calling right now. I have to tell her I was doing this. Sorry about that. Yeah. Anyway, the main horror movies that I like, though, like the series at least, are Friday the 13th. Nightmare on Elm Street, and Halloween now, just after being able to watch all of them. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of cool seeing how it all comes together.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of fun watching franchises for that reason, and seeing, like, some of them, of course, are just going to be bad 80s movies that you're like, oh my god, they were really reaching to try and tie these together, but it's still fun in a way of, like, if you don't like cheesy, bad 80s movies, are you even human?
Exactly. I mean, I remember back in college, me and my friends, like, part of our pregame was to just watch bad movies and drink whenever something ridiculous happened. Like, we would have fun out of it, and like, the cheesy bad movies are some of my favorites because, I mean, if anything, I'm just more entertained by comedy things, and even when they're not trying to be funny, that makes it even funnier to me.
Yeah, 100%. All right, I'm going to curve this back to wrestling now with a couple of fun questions for you. So this is a two-parter. So
okay.
I want to know, give me a dream match, anybody living or dead, that you wish you could watch, and then give me a dream match that you wish you could have.
Oh, boy. Dream match. I mean, one match that I would absolutely love to see would have been, like, Shawn Michaels versus AJ Styles. Like, both in their prime, I feel like that would have been the closest thing to Shawn versus Shawn.
Right.
Just because Shawn's the greatest worker of all time, and I honestly, like, I grew up watching AJ as well, and him going through TNA and now in WWE, like, he is the closest thing to Shawn Michaels that we have in our current state of wrestling, in my opinion. So if I got to see those guys go at it, both in their prime, that would probably blow my mind.
I like it.
Yeah. Dream match for me to have, I mean, you got me thinking, like, on the scale of just shows I've been on, you got me thinking, you know, AEW and WWE, like.
Oh, yeah. I want it. I want the biggest thing that you got in your mind. If you were, like, walking into WrestleMania tomorrow, who are you looking at?
Oh, man, I mean, one match that I would absolutely love to have, like, probably just a dream match, because I would be excited of all the things we could do, is probably if I could go against Adam Cole. Like, that would be.
That's huge. I love Adam Cole, and you know, you do have that style too, where I know you like a lot of the guys like Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair and them, but you have the style of like an Adam Cole, or like maybe even leaning towards like the Young Bucks or something like that, if that makes sense. I know you have a lot of the old school inspirations, but you bring a lot of your new school flair to it.
Yeah. I'm actually, that's one thing I try to have fun with, especially with having Loke as my trainer. He's very old school and like, hey, we're making this as real as possible. So I like to almost find the challenge in what's a cool move that I really want to do, but how can I make the most sense and have it as realistic as possible. So I kind of almost have fun trying to combine the new school stuff with the old school stuff.
Are you naturally a creative person, or is this something that wrestling has kind of brought out of you?
I've actually been a creative person. I actually went to college for graphic design.
Oh, wow.
Logos and stuff like that.
Oh, I knew that. When I first met you, I remember you telling me that. We were talking about it a little bit.
I owe you a logo. I just remembered that. I'm so sorry. I just remembered.
I did too. I'm like, yeah, we talked about this 2 years ago when you were going to make me a new logo.
Sorry about that. Got that a little lost in the shuffle when I first started training. I'll get right on that one.
Hey, I mean, to be fair, you've been a pretty busy guy the last few years.
Yeah.
Well,
I feel bad.
No, don't worry about it. I mean, obviously I forgot too because I wasn't asking for it.
Yeah.
So, listen, man, before I let you go today, I want you to plug out your social media, let everybody know where they can follow you, see your flyers, and just keep up with you for anybody who already doesn't, because obviously I know a lot of my listeners from this area probably already do, but we have a bigger reach outside of that, and I want everybody to be able to find you.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. So you can find me on Instagram and Twitter. Both are the same. It's going to be at TJ Epixx. That's TJEPIXX. You know, gotta have two X's because X's are cool. And you can find all my social media stuff on there. I'm always plugging my next show. If it's not on my main page, it's always going to be on my story.
All right, perfect, man. Well, thank you for doing this today. I truly appreciate it, and hopefully I cross paths with you again sometime, because we need to have a match that is longer than 4 or 5 minutes.
Exactly. I was just thinking the same thing. Like, I definitely need to get that rematch with you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for even having me on. I'm super appreciative of it.
All right, rockers, once again, TJ Epixx. Follow him on social media. He's blowing up. He's all over the place. And he's not done yet, not even close. He's still fresh in the business. And I love having these guys on who are fresh in the business because they have such a great outlook on it still. They're not bitter, and they're still chasing dreams, reaching these goals. So congratulations, TJ, for your first major title one more time. And we will catch you guys next week on the All Bets Are Off podcast.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.